Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to episode 277 of the Jays from the Couch radio podcast, brought to you by, of course, jaysfromthecouch.com. Thank you for tuning in for another week of Blue Jays talk, whether it's through our live stream on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. We appreciate it, as always. Don't forget, if you're watching via those platforms, you can also contribute to the show, ask a question, make a comment, whatever have you. Even just say hello. We would appreciate it. So that's on the comment section of all of those mediums. Don't forget the audio version available anywhere you find quality podcasts. Just look for Jays from the Couch Radio and you'll find us there. And I'm your host, as always, Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. Got a great episode for you, and not just because the Feckless Wonder is absent. Oh wow, it started already.
Poor Steve.
Poor Steve. But I'm being joined by the host of Sunny Side of the Dome, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Karen Suter. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening, Sean.
Now, this will be a different episode this week in that I won't have to just sit back and let you and Steve go, head to head, right? I may have to actually participate a bit more, which, ooh. But hopefully our listeners will stick with us. Speaking of Sarah, thank you for watching on Facebook. Yeah, I don't know. I got to get a dig in at my buddy Steve just because I love him. Yeah, we've got a great episode this week. We're going to talk about some actual news stuff. I know some people tune in for our fake news segment, but this week it's all news. All news, because there's actually some stuff to talk about that could fill a podcast episode. So you've got Mark Shapiro and the Mets. We've got Alex Anthopoulos in the World Series. And Karen and I are going to look at some qualifying offers and whether or not we would hand them out and just how easy a decision that would be. So to start off with, Karen, let's go with Mark Shapiro. Apparently, the Mets, for some reason, wanted him to run their baseball club. Because if you look on Twitter over the last few years, you would think that, there would be a long line of people willing to drive Mark Shapiro to New York, to Queens. But the Mets wanted him. So first of all, Karen, let's just start there. Okay. Let's maybe you won't. Maybe you won't set aside all of the negativity that has been dumped at Mark Shapiro's feet. But what do you make of the Mets, who are clearly turning a corner with their franchise, going after Mark Shapiro?
Yeah, back off. Get your own president. No, I mean, honestly, I think Shapiro and Atkins... Personally, I think they've done a terrific job, and I'm glad that the Mets were not granted permission. I gather there's been some turnover in their organization, and they're looking for some upper management, and all the best of luck to them. But no, Mark Shapiro is under contract with the Blue Jays. It's not like it would be. He's already team president, so it's not like it could be a step up. I want to see him stay here and finish the work that he and Ross Atkins started and be here to get one of those rings.
Does it surprise you at all, though, that the Mets, looking to kind of right their ship, so to speak, are coming after looking at Mark Shapiro as an option now? And let's be clear, they're not only looking at Mark Shapiro, right? At this point, I think they've struck out 3 times already.
Yeah, they have to cast a wide net, but
who knows at this point? I may be their next president. We'll see. But in all seriousness, Karen, where do you how does that, what are your thoughts on that? Just that they would pick Mark Shapiro?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way, I'm not surprised because he's been in the game forever. I mean, he came to the Blue Jays with a world of experience, and he's been here for, 5 years now, 5-6 years. So, I mean, I understand why he's well respected and well thought of throughout baseball, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, if I'm whatever. If I'm making the decisions with the Mets, and I think I can get Mark Shapiro, then why not? Because I'm sure he'd do a great job. But again, thank you, nice try, but no.
Right. And I'm in the same boat as yourself. And I think it has to do with, I can see why the Mets would want him, considering everything that Mark Shapiro is, even if we just assume Toronto is his only baseball experience, which it is not, right? Mark Shapiro, as you said, has been around forever, and he's well respected in the game of baseball and at the upper management level and all of that. So, but regardless, if you only look at his Toronto experience, I can see why the New York Mets would want Mark Shapiro to run their organization. And it's been well publicized, right? And even if you just look at the baseball operation side of things, and we don't even look into trades or free agent signings, the baseball operations side, what he's done in Florida, down in Dunedin with the complex there, with the things that he has going on with regard to the Rogers Center, it doesn't get much better. And then when you include the baseball stuff, the roster management and the farm system and all of the whole thing, I think that he's running a well-run machine right now. And I get why the Mets would want him. But it would shock me that he would even interview for it if it's, considering everything he's done here, right? Like, he's invested now. And I believe it was January that he signed his 5-year deal to stay in his position.
Okay, last January. Yeah, it might be. I don't remember exactly, but
yeah. So I mean, it's anyway. I mean, the Mets. I don't know what to tell you. I'm
not sure anyone knows what to tell them. I'm sorry to say it, but the organization is a bit of a mess. So.
And it's funny because for a while there, I used to joke that the Mets organization was a bit of a mess anyway. But then they had, I can't even think of his name, the new owner coming in with his...
Oh, Cohen, yeah.
Thank you, yes. Coming in with his new bags and bags and bags of money on his white, shiny horse, and they get Francisco Lindor, and they still are the Mets.
So, I mean, they were in first place for much of the season, and then inexplicably they just kind of collapsed. And yeah, I don't even know what to make of it, but
yeah,
it's unfortunate.
No, absolutely. But I mean, I don't know what to tell them. Like, good luck, because you thought you had the answer in all the money, but apparently that was not. Money can't buy them a lot, actually. We've got somebody on
my rocker either.
There you go. The Bison's Booster watching on YouTube. I think the Mets assumed the chaos with Rogers' communication would give Shapiro reason to consider it, and that might be Mr. Booster. Thank you for that comment watching on YouTube. You might be 100% bang on that maybe the Mets thought that. I would, in all honesty, be shocked if the Mets even understood what was happening behind the doors of Rogers, because I don't even think the Blue Jays do. But that's a joke. But I think it has more to do with just the fact that Mark Shapiro brings, so much experience and knowledge and professionalism too. He's... Anyway, I'm gushing right now, and it sounds really weird, so we're gonna move on. I started hearing myself, Karen, and I was like, "Oh my god, wow!" Like
Matt Sweetie from the other day.
That's right. Matt was watching on YouTube, and then I think he left, go have a cold shower or something. But anyway, so we're gonna move on. We're not going to talk about Mark Shapiro anymore because. It's a family show. But speaking of gushing, Karen, former Blue Jays GM, who everybody loved, Alex Anthopoulos, just the feel-good story starting in the lower levels of the bowels of the Toronto Blue Jays, and then working his way up through to running the Sarah is now making fun of me on Facebook because I might have displayed my man crush on Blue Jays president, Mark Shapiro. Too bad, Mark. I'm happily married. I'm sorry. But anyway, maybe in another life. But anyway, Alex Anthopoulos worked his way up to running the organization. And his first job, if you remember, Karen, was to trade Roy Halladay. Yeah. He gets in the seat and is like, okay, now trade this future Hall of Famer who's been the cornerstone of the Toronto Blue Jays for years. Good luck to you, bud. And it didn't work out well. Kyle Drabek, wherever he is, I don't even know anymore. Yeah. It didn't work out for Toronto. It worked out rather nicely for Philadelphia, but whatever. Anyway, and then, of course, the architect of some huge Blue Jays trades, going back to the Marlins, when he went crazy, getting Mark Burley, Josh Johnson, Jose Reyes, and Emilio Bonifacio. And I think there was a catcher in there as well. What's his name? Thank you, John Buck. Yes, it escaped me.
Flipped as part of the R.A. Dickey trade, if I remember correctly. So, yep.
So because right after that, or that deal, they had to they wanted R.A. Dickey, so they had to take Josh Jolie too, right? So yeah, to balance out the catching situation. And of course, we remember Noah Syndergaard, Travis d'Arnaud, who's in the World Series now, blah, blah, blah. But then, of course, 2015, Alex Anthopoulos has an amazing history of not being afraid of pulling the trigger on massive deals, taking on money to give up player talent as well. And he was a master of using the waiver wire, and he knew how to manipulate it even. Anyway, now I'm gushing again. Stand in line, Alex. Stand in line. Anyway. So he was never afraid to make the big deal. It didn't always work. The Miami trade did not work. The R.A. Dickey thing, you could argue, given the context of everything, it didn't really work. The reigning Cy Young winner, that didn't work. But then 2015 worked. So Karen, I guess I ran a poll on the old Twitter machine and just simply asking if people, missed Alex Anthopoulos being with the Toronto Blue Jays. So do you wish Alex Anthopoulos was still with the Blue Jays? Yes or no? Very simple. Very simple. 115 votes. 70% said no. That is a fascinating number to me, given the vitriol that has been shot out of a massive cannon at the current front office. So, Karen, my question to you is, what are your thoughts on Alex Anthopoulos, who I think has grown from the GM we know and love? Wink, wink, Alex. But what are your thoughts on him now, being in the World Series, the architect of a World Series soon to be potentially champion team?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so many thoughts, and I mean, with regard to your poll, just circling back, although you didn't explicitly state it, and I think someone else made some comments about, if having Anthopoulos back would have meant that Shapiro and Atkins wouldn't be there. And I voted, and under those parameters, then no, I would not want him back right now. Best of both worlds. Had there been some way for Shapiro to be president, Anthopoulos to be GM, and Atkins to be assistant GM, like, to just imagine what a team they would have made. and their different styles, and if they could have found a way to mesh and do things, do the right things at the right times and so forth. But I mean, I'm happy for him. I'm watching these games. I don't like either of these teams. I mean, for me, I've been reduced to I can cheer for certain people, and one of them is Anthopoulos. I'm very happy for him, and it's funny too, because I didn't. There was a headline, and I think I spotted it, and then I had to go to work, and then I sort of lost track of it. But I don't know if it was an article or an interview, and I don't know if you saw it yourself. But Anthopoulos made a comment about 2014 and how the trade deadline came and went, and the Jays, a little bit like the Mets this past season, had spent a lot of the season in first place, and then they faltered, but they were still in one of the wild card spots for a lot of the season, and they just fell right out of it. And a lot of it had to do with, I think they had Encarnacion, Brett Laurie, and Adam Lind all on what was called the disabled list back then, and he felt there were too many holes to try to go out and add. And he said that someone like Jose Bautista coming out and voicing his disappointment about that actually helped him grow as a general manager. And if Atlanta does win the 2021 World Series, maybe they should send Jose Bautista a fruit basket, because it maybe if it weren't for his comments, maybe he doesn't go out and make the deals that he did this year for Atlanta, when they had a whole bunch of, like, not just a bunch of guys, a bunch of key guys go out and get injured. And instead of packing it in for the season, it's like, no, there's still things we can do. And he plugged some holes. I mean, it's not Ronald Acuna Jr., but
Well, not many people are.
no. But what one thought, and I here and there, I think about the 2015 team and just how good a team they were. I mean, I myself, when I watch a championship caliber team, what I usually see is a team that has so many ways to beat the opposition with very few weaknesses. And once they made those trades and plugged all that holes, that's where I saw the Blue Jays. And I've thought of, if only this, if only this, if it hadn't been for this one thing, that, might they have won it all? So rewind a little bit, and I want to ask your opinion. The R.A. Dickey trade never happens. Noah Syndergaard is still in the Jays system. And if you look at the season that he had for the Mets in 2015, including his performance in the playoffs, would that have made the difference?
Well, now that is an interesting scenario. One which I actually would prefer, only because that means we didn't lose him and get R.A. Dickey. But that's my own personal opinion. But anyway, but the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that if they still had him, would they have been in the position that they were in mid-season? So if they weren't, then they wouldn't have had to make the bigger trades that they did make. Right. And then, because I really believe, like, very few times in a sport, any season, can you find a moment that you can say this is the defining moment of when this team went the way they did. And that 2015 trade deadline, not just the people they brought in, but what it did to the team itself, the shot in the arm it gave them. That's what I'm saying. I guess what I'm saying is, if Noah Syndergaard's there, that maybe that doesn't happen, and then they don't get that shot in the arm. Maybe.
I mean, you might be right, but I tend to think it would have anyway, because basically they kind of had a revolving door at the fifth starter's position. Yeah. So Syndergaard would have replaced R.A. Dickey, and, maybe the Jays would have had a couple more wins because of it before the deadline. But I think they still would have been looking at, I mean, I still remember telling my coworkers, the Blue Jays just DFA'd Felix Dubrons, who wasn't great but wasn't terrible. That tells me that they're looking to add someone else and that they think they can add someone else. And voila, later that day, hello, David Price.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know what I feel like? I feel like they still would have made those moves, but the rotation that they had pre-Price trade would have been that much stronger.
Yeah.
Imagine having Syndergaard and Marco Estrada the way Marco Estrada became, acquiring David Price, Marcus Stroman coming back in September.
Yeah.
With that offense.
Oh, yeah. Things could have been different, but I also still believe that even without Noah Syndergaard on the team, the only reason that Toronto did not beat Kansas City was that weird bearded kid and a rain delay.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If it weren't for those two, they would have beat Kansas City. They would have gone on to the World Series and, in my opinion, would have won it.
And a cold strike that was nowhere near the strike zone. And I can still see Ben Revere going absolutely nutso in the dugout, and I don't blame him. That was ridiculous. And
yeah. But a bad call that I hate to say it because that opens up a whole can of worms, but it's part of the game. Not that bad a call, but bad calls do happen. But that kid, like if somebody ever were to ask me to paint a face on something that you plan on working out at a tremendous amount of aggression, I would put that face on it. And I'm sure he's a lovely kid. He's probably not a kid anymore, and maybe he can grow a full beard. I don't know. But I would put that face, that little picture of him holding the ball, anyway. And then, of course, the rain delay, which was ill-timed. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, to finish up, to wrap a bow on Alex Anthopoulos, Steve could not. You can't keep the Feckless Wonder quiet. Steve is watching.
He's still here. Hello.
He's watching on YouTube and contributing that way. That's dedication and commitment. Love it, Steve. Love you. Alex Anthopoulos has a history of doing his job, which is to put his teams into contention and make the hard decisions. Absolutely. And remember, he had to rebuild after the Ricciardi disasters. And in the case of Halladay, he was under orders to reduce the payroll. Absolutely. You can't blame Alex Anthopoulos for Roy Halladay.
And to be fair, I've done a little research on Halladay, and basically he was a year away from free agency. He'd already signed 2 below market extensions with the Jays because he wanted to stay with the Jays and he wanted to win with the Jays, and they couldn't even get him to the playoffs. And he finally said to management, look, I'm not signing any more extensions. Trade me this offseason, get as much as you can for me, or in a year you lose me for nothing. So yeah, they didn't have much choice.
No, he didn't. And the return is the return. I mean, it is what it is.
Kyle Drabek was projected to be, and he was just one of those can't miss prospects who missed.
And you know what? If somebody were to ask me to paint a face on the prospect, I would put his, because if you're looking to make a trade, and we were kind of talking about this before we went live, but if you're going to make a trade, you got to give up something. So you got to get over it. If we can't give up too much, you got to pay, right? So the other thing is you don't know what a prospect is actually going to be. You could ask Toronto right now about Nate Pearson. Like, what the hell is going on there, right? But Kyle Drabek is the face of that. At the time, if you're Toronto, you're happy, you're thrilled, you're getting Kyle Drabek.
Yeah,
can't believe it, right? And it's just like any other prospect that gets drafted, or Tampa Bay, how they built their system on trading stars, right? Like there are no guarantees, so you go with the best in the moment, right? So that's why this offseason, Karen, all in. Everybody goes. I don't give a flying Mark Burley fastball. I don't care. Because they're close. This is the time. You got to go big, because if you don't, the last 2 years were pointless. The trade for Jose Barrios was pointless. So anyway, to begin the offseason, though, Toronto is going to have to make some decisions about qualifying offers. And the amount, I believe, is just a fraction south of $19 million. It's like, the Canadian border, and it's Detroit. It's just below it to the south. Anyway, Toronto's going to have to make a decision about those, right? They've got Steven Matz, they've got Marcus Semien, and they've got the other one.
Robbie Ray.
The other one,
Robbie Ray, whose son dressed up as a Blue Jay player for Halloween.
I believe it was Danny Jansen. That's who he was for Halloween.
I think a lot of people are saying more like Bichette, but...
No, I'm going with Danny Jansen. His dad's bestie? Come on. Anyway. Now, see, I lost it. Yeah, so those three headed for qualifying offers, I would assume. So let's go one by one. Karen, do you agree you give one to Robbie Ray?
Yeah.
If he signs his $120 million deal somewhere else, the Blue Jays get a compensatory pick anyway, assuming that's still there, which I assume it would be. Okay, so Ray's done. Check. $19 million. Pay the man. Marcus Semien, Karen, do you extend him a qualifying offer?
The first two are no-brainers. I mean, how could they not?
I'm just doing this for suspense. I'm trying to force suspense, which is just failing. So, okay, but then there's Steven Matz. And then there's Steven Matz, who, had a very good season, especially after his bout with COVID, his time off from COVID. So do you, Karen, offer a qualifying offer to Steven Matz?
I mean, 50-50. Apparently, the Blue Jays have considered it. Now, let's be honest. Not 19 million, let's call it 19 million, whatever it is. That would be a bit of an overpay for Steven Matz, given the season that he had. I mean, when Steven Matz was good, he was very good. But then there were the other starts. So 50-50. I mean, the thing, if you're Steven Matz and the Jays give you a qualifying offer, do you take it? I think there's a pretty good chance he would take it, because he's not going to get that annual value somewhere else. He might get a long-term deal, but it won't have an average annual value of 19 million, and maybe he bets on himself and hopes to have an even better season in 2022 and then get the big bucks. But yeah, I could see them doing it, even though they know it's an overpay. I was looking at his season, and I just broke it down start by start on MLB. And at first, I used the quality start metric of at least 6 innings and at least and no more than 3 earned runs. And by that metric, he was actually pretty awful. It was, yeah. But then what I did, thinking of him sort of as a 5th starter, I lowered the bar a bit, and I said, okay, what if we only went 5 innings and 3 or fewer runs? And what do you think, if you're using that as the metric, how many yes and how many no do you think he would have had?
That's tough. I don't know.
It actually made a huge difference. Minimum 5 innings pitched and no more than 3 earned runs given up. 19 yes and 10 no.
Wow.
So, I mean, I might do it because they need pitching, and he can be really good when he's good, and there's some upside there. And
okay. Well, I don't even hesitate.
Yeah.
Yep, give it to him. I mean, really what you need from Steven Matz is, in order to make it worth it, is you need almost 2 wins above replacement. I think it would be like 1.7, 1.8, something like that. But so you need 2 wins out of him. Is Steven Matz going to put up 2 wins in 2021? Probably not. He's probably projected at 1 and 1.2, let's say.
I think it was, what did he do for the Jays? I think he was 2.5 maybe.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, right? Like, but I think he outperformed his projections. And looking ahead to next year, I don't know that. Anyway, regardless, even if it is an overpay, it's not that much of an overpay. And you're guaranteed. Exactly. It's 1 year. That's what's going to be my next point, is that even if it is, it's not that much. And even if it is that much, it's only a year. In a year where they absolutely need starting pitching. There's no way around that. Robbie Ray, as much as I cross everything I can cross, my fingers, my toes, my eyes, whatever, I don't think he's coming back to Toronto. I just have that bad feeling. Whereas Marcus Semien, I don't even think about it because I know he's not coming back to Toronto.
Oh my goodness. What the heck?
Karen, I'll put money. Next week, this is what we'll do, Karen. We can bet. Okay? And I will bet he is not coming back to Toronto. In fact, I'm even willing to bet Robbie Ray is not coming back, even though I desperately want him to be back in Toronto. I just have this negative feeling.
They're going to sign at least one of them.
Well, and it may end up being.
Not. I mean, they're no.
It may end up being Steven Matz that they end up signing.
I don't mean Steven Matz. They're going to sign one of them, as in at least one.
Okay.
And Marcus Semien, possibly both, but I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that they're both coming back. I'd like to see that, but one of them are coming back.
And I hope you're right. I just have this feeling, but either way, they need Steven Matz. And they'll need him even more if Robbie Ray signs elsewhere. So to me, the qualifying offer is a no-brainer, even for Steven Matz. So I give it to all three. And if none of them re-sign, then that's unfortunate. But you'll get those 3 picks anyway, right? So I know I've upset you, Karen, and I feel the rage all the way from Toronto.
Why can't people be positive? Between this and our chat earlier today, in the chat room, oh my God!
I don't know. I want to be positive, Karen, and maybe that's why I will be front row center on Sunny Side of the Dome Thursday because I need some positivity. Because it's not that I don't want them to be re-signed. It's not that I don't think that they can be re-signed. I just don't think they will. And that's like, and Sarah, thank you. She's got me. She's giving me a shield. I just I don't see it, and I want to see it so badly. But anyway, maybe, Karen, you can fix me on Sunny Side of the Dome Thursday, 6 p.m., because apparently I do need some positivity. And I apologize, Karen, because we're at the end of episode 277, and I've upset you. This is how we're going to end things, and I feel deeply regret it. So I hope you'll come back next week, and and maybe I'll grovel because I don't know. I'll figure it away.
Those deals get signed.
Right. If that's the case, Karen, I will gladly admit I'm wrong, and I will praise you. I'll have a whole episode dedicated to praising Karen.
But they're not coming back to Toronto. Yes, they did. They're not making any big trades this year at the deadline. Yes, they did. Not signing a big free agent this past off season. George Springer's a big free agent. Have some faith.
No, I'm laughing because I was going to say you didn't go back far enough, because I didn't think they were going to sign George Springer. I didn't think they were going to sign Hyunjin Ryu. So I'm not saying what I know anything.
This past season, I wish they hadn't signed Ryu. However,
Excellent point. That's a whole other episode. But anyway, Karen, let everybody know how they can follow you and all that.
Yes, I'm on Twitter at Karen Sutar1, exactly how it's spelled there, Soutar. And I spend way too much time on Twitter. Love to talk with mutual respect being important, of course, baseball, other reasonable topics. And I'm easy to find. So say hi if you feel like it.
Karen's always a good chat on Twitter. She had me distracted from my students on multiple occasions on Twitter, and I thanked her for it. So, I mean, no, if you're my employer, that is not true. It was all during my lunchtime. Anyway, so Karen, I do appreciate it. Again, as always, you give your time to the couch, and I appreciate it very much. So for all of our viewers on Twitter and Facebook, on YouTube, keep those comments coming and the questions coming. We really appreciate it. And if you're catching this after the fact, make it a point. Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time is the Jays from the Couch podcast. We go live streaming at you. And of course, the On Feck Circle, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time from the Feckless Wonder, and Thursdays, Sunny Side of the Dome, 6 p.m. Eastern Time with Karen Sutar. Catch the audio version of our podcast on Apple, Google, anywhere you find podcasts, you'll find us there. Give us a subscribe and all that. So for Karen, for the Feckless Wonder himself, off in the internet space somewhere, this is Sean Doyle. You can follow me on Twitter at Doyle JFtC. Hoping life gives you a juicy fastball down the middle and you don't miss it. Take care.